The rumble of motorcycle engines echoed across the empty highway as the sun dipped lower toward the horizon. Marcus had organized this Saturday ride with his motorcycle club, the Iron Brotherhood, a group of 19 bikers who had been friends for over a decade. They were heading out for their weekly charity run, planning to visit the local children's hospital and deliver toys they had collected throughout the month. The wind whipped through their hair as they cruised down the open road, feeling the freedom that only a motorcycle could provide. When they pulled into the Mountain View gas station just outside Riverside, they figured it would be a quick pit stop. They needed fuel, cold drinks, and maybe some snacks before continuing their journey. Marcus pulled up to the pump first, his leather jacket creaking as he dismounted his bike. The rest of the club followed, parking their motorcycles in a neat line. Some of the guys headed inside to grab coffee and use the restroom, while others stayed outside to fill up their tanks. The late afternoon had turned unusually quiet, with only a handful of cars in the parking lot. That's when Marcus first heard it. A muffled sound, almost like a cry, seemed to come from somewhere nearby. He paused, tilting his head to listen more carefully. At first, he thought he might have imagined it, chalking it up to the ringing in his ears from the long ride. Then he heard it again. Clearer this time. It was unmistakably a scream, and not just one voice, but multiple voices overlapping. The sound was coming from a white van parked in the far corner of the gas station lot, partially hidden behind a large promotional billboard. Marcus's blood ran cold. His protective instinct kicked in immediately, the same instinct that made him dedicate his weekends to helping kids in hospitals. He called over to his friend Danny, who was checking his tire pressure nearby. "Did you hear that?" Marcus asked, pointing toward the van. Danny's face grew serious as another scream pierced through the air. Without hesitation, both men started walking toward the vehicle. The other bikers noticed something was wrong and quickly gathered around, their relaxed weekend attitude transforming into focused alertness. As they approached the van, the screaming became louder and more desperate. It was the sound of children in distress, and it was coming from inside that van. Marcus could see that the van's sliding door was partially open, but dark curtains covered the windows, making it impossible to see what was happening inside. His heart hammered against his ribs as he reached for the door handle. The voices grew even more frantic, and he could hear the sounds of movement and struggle. Without waiting for backup or thinking about the potential danger, Marcus yanked the door wider open, prepared to face whatever nightmare awaited him. What he saw in those next few seconds would forever change his life and the lives of everyone who had come on that ride that day. Inside the van, illuminated by the fading daylight streaming through the now open door, was a scene that made every biker's blood run ice cold. There were 7 children, ranging from what looked like 6 to 12 years old, huddled together in the dim interior. Their faces showed terror and confusion. Behind them, securing them with zip ties, was a man in his 40s wearing a dark hoodie. The man's face showed shock and fury as he realized his privacy had been violated. He immediately lunged toward the children, trying to pull them deeper into the van and away from the open door. But Marcus was faster. He grabbed the man by the arm, his grip iron-tight from years of working construction and riding motorcycles. The man in the hoodie thrashed wildly, trying to escape Marcus's grip, but the biker's strength and determination were unmatched. "Let go of me," the man shouted, his voice carrying a desperate rage. The other members of the Iron Brotherhood moved into action instantly, surrounding the van and blocking any potential escape route. Danny reached in to help secure the man while others rushed to attend to the frightened children. The kids were crying, confused, and clearly traumatized by their experience. Some were shouting for help, while others sat in stunned silence, their minds unable to fully process what was happening. "It's okay, you're safe now," Marcus said gently to the nearest child, a young girl with blonde hair and tear-stained cheeks. His voice was calm and reassuring, contrasting sharply with the chaos of moments before. He could see that she was terrified, not just of the situation but of him and the other large bikers surrounding her. Marcus removed his leather jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders, trying to provide comfort while establishing trust. The other bikers began carefully cutting the zip ties that bound the children, moving slowly and speaking softly to avoid frightening them further. The man in the hoodie continued to resist, kicking and screaming obscenities as 2 of the larger bikers held him firmly on the ground outside the van. Marcus quickly realized they needed to call the police immediately. He dialed 911 with shaking hands, explaining the situation to the dispatcher with clipped, precise words. The dispatcher assured him that police units were already being dispatched to their location and that an ambulance would arrive shortly as well. Time seemed to slow down as they waited for emergency services to arrive. While waiting, Marcus and the other bikers worked to calm the terrified children. They learned that the children had been missing from a local school field trip that morning. The bus driver had made an unauthorized stop to pick up this man, who had claimed to be a substitute driver. When the real bus arrived later, the children were gone. Parents had been notified, police searches had begun, and an Amber Alert had been issued across the state. The children had been missing for over 6 hours, and the whole community had been plunged into panic and despair. The man had planned to take the children far away, to a cabin he owned in the mountains, where he intended to hold them for ransom and worse. His criminal history was extensive, involving previous charges of child endangerment and attempted kidnapping. He had been released on parole just months before and had been under investigation by authorities for suspicious activity. If the bikers hadn't stopped for gas at that exact moment, if Marcus hadn't heard those screams, the outcome would have been unthinkably tragic. The children's lives hung in the balance, and fate had delivered salvation through the rumble of motorcycle engines and the compassionate hearts of men in leather jackets. As sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer with each passing second, Marcus looked at the children's faces. Despite their trauma, he could see the beginning of relief washing over them. They understood, on some level, that they had been rescued from something terrible. The Iron Brotherhood had changed their weekend plans dramatically, and none of them would ever be able to unsee what they had witnessed in that van. The first police cars arrived with lights flashing and sirens blaring, pulling into the gas station parking lot with controlled urgency. Officers emerged from their vehicles with practiced efficiency, immediately assessing the situation and taking control of the scene. Marcus and the other bikers stepped back, allowing the professionals to take over the immediate crisis management. They provided detailed accounts of what had happened, explaining how they heard the screams and found the children. The police officers treated the bikers with genuine respect, recognizing that their quick thinking and bravery had prevented a catastrophe. The paramedics arrived moments later, carrying equipment and supplies to check on the children's physical and mental conditions. Each child was carefully examined, assessed for injuries, and evaluated for signs of immediate trauma. Remarkably, while all of them showed signs of extreme emotional distress, none had suffered serious physical harm. The zip ties had left marks on their wrists and ankles, and they all showed signs of dehydration and fear, but they were alive and relatively intact. This small mercy was largely due to the fact that the abduction had been interrupted before it could progress to its intended destination. As the paramedics were loading the children into the ambulance, the lead detective on the case approached Marcus. The detective, a woman named Captain Sarah Chen, had been working on missing children cases for 15 years. She had seen the worst that humanity had to offer, but she had also learned to recognize genuine heroism when she encountered it. She shook Marcus's hand firmly, looking him directly in the eye. "You did good today," she said simply. "Really good. These kids are going home to their parents because of you and your friends." The man in the hoodie was placed in police custody, his hands cuffed and his rights read to him as officers led him to a patrol car. His name was Robert Dale Hutchins, and his criminal record was as dark and twisted as the crime he had attempted to commit. Violent tendencies, obsessive behavior, and a complete lack of remorse characterized his history. As he was being taken away, he kept muttering threats and denials, showing absolutely no concern for the children he had terrorized. The officers secured him in the back of the patrol car, and he was transported to the county jail to await formal charges. The scene at the gas station was now fully controlled by law enforcement. Police cars lined the parking lot, crime scene investigators were collecting evidence from the van, and officers were conducting interviews with the bikers and other witnesses. The gas station attendant, a young man named Kevin, had been inside during the initial confrontation and had watched from the store window as the drama unfolded. He was shocked that something so dark and dangerous could happen in the middle of an ordinary Saturday afternoon in what he thought was a safe, quiet town. As the emergency response continued, Marcus found himself standing apart from the action, watching the machinery of justice begin to turn. His mind was racing with the reality of what could have happened. If they had gone to a different gas station. If they had filled up quickly and left. If the children had been taken deeper into the van before they could be discovered. If Robert Dale Hutchins had been more careful and soundproofed the vehicle better. So many small threads of fate had aligned to prevent disaster. The Iron Brotherhood had intended to spend their Saturday doing charity work at a children's hospital, but instead, they had become real-life heroes in a genuine emergency. The parents of the 7 rescued children were notified almost immediately by police. Captain Chen personally called each family, delivering news that transformed their afternoon from one of desperate hope and terror into one of overwhelming relief and gratitude. The children's hospital where the Iron Brotherhood had originally planned to deliver toys became the staging area for emotional reunions. Parents who had spent the day in the darkest depths of fear and despair suddenly found themselves running toward the arms of their children, tears streaming down their faces, holding them as if they might disappear again. The oldest child, a 12-year-old boy named James, spoke to reporters later that evening. He described how scared everyone had been, how they didn't understand what was happening or where they were being taken. He talked about how he heard the motorcycles and felt a flicker of hope, how the screaming of the other children seemed to attract attention, how suddenly the door opened and light flooded in. "Those motorcycle guys saved us," James said simply, his voice still shaky but growing stronger. "They didn't have to help us, but they did. They stopped and they listened and they saved our lives." The Iron Brotherhood sat together in a quiet corner of the hospital while the reunions happened around them. They were still dressed in their leather jackets and motorcycle gear, looking completely out of place in the sterile, fluorescent-lit hospital environment. Yet to the parents, they were heroes wearing the most appropriate uniform possible. One by one, grateful parents approached the bikers, shaking their hands, hugging them, thanking them through tears. Some offered money, which all the bikers politely declined. Others asked if they could do something to repay them, to express their gratitude in some meaningful way. An older woman, the grandmother of one of the rescued girls, approached Marcus with tears streaming down her weathered face. She pulled him into a tight embrace, and for a moment, Marcus felt the weight of what they had accomplished. This woman had thought her granddaughter was gone forever, lost to the worst kind of evil. Now she was hugging the man who had brought her back. "Thank you," the grandmother whispered over and over. "Thank you for hearing her. Thank you for saving her. Thank you." The local news had picked up on the story almost immediately, and news crews were setting up cameras throughout the hospital. The story of the motorcycle club that happened to be in the right place at the right time was too good, too meaningful, for the media to ignore. Reporters were asking for interviews, wanting to know how the bikers felt, what drove them to take action, whether they considered themselves heroes. Marcus and the other members of the Iron Brotherhood were uncomfortable with the attention at first. They hadn't done what they did to become famous or receive praise. They had simply reacted to hearing children in distress, acting on instinct and compassion. But as the evening progressed, the bikers began to understand the importance of their story. The media attention wasn't just about them. It was about celebrating the goodness that still existed in the world. It was about showing that regular people, people who rode motorcycles and wore leather jackets and lived unconventional lives, could be forces for good. It was about challenging stereotypes and demonstrating that heroes don't always look like what people expect them to look like. The Iron Brotherhood decided to cooperate with the media, sharing their story in hopes that it would inspire other people to trust their instincts and take action when they witness something wrong. In the days following the rescue, the story spread throughout the community and beyond. Local news stations featured interviews with Marcus and the Iron Brotherhood members. The story was picked up by national media outlets and spread across social media platforms, reaching millions of people worldwide. The hashtag #IronBrotherhoodHeroes began trending on various platforms as people shared the story, expressed their gratitude for the bikers' bravery, and reflected on the importance of speaking up and taking action when witnessing danger or injustice. The school district that had lost control of the 7 children during the field trip conducted a thorough investigation. The bus driver who had picked up Robert Dale Hutchins faced serious charges for his negligence and for allowing an unauthorized person to take control of the vehicle. The incident sparked important conversations about school safety protocols, background checking for substitute drivers, and the need for better supervision during field trips. Educational institutions across the country began reviewing their policies, inspired by both the horror of what almost happened and the grace of the rescue. Robert Dale Hutchins was charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and attempted human trafficking. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The children's testimonies, the physical evidence found in the van, his prior criminal history, and the clear premeditation demonstrated by his cabin in the mountains all contributed to a strong prosecution case. He was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that he could never harm another child. The Iron Brotherhood's original charitable mission didn't end with the rescue. In fact, it evolved into something bigger and more meaningful. The motorcycle club established a scholarship fund for the 7 rescued children, pooling their own money along with donations from community members who had been moved by their story. The fund was designed to help the children pursue their education and overcome the trauma of their experience. More than that, the Iron Brotherhood expanded their charity work significantly. They began organizing monthly charity rides, raising funds for child safety programs, supporting Amber Alert initiatives, and working with law enforcement to raise awareness about child endangerment. The 7 children received counseling and support to process their traumatic experience. Psychologists and social workers helped them work through their fear and anxiety, rebuilding their sense of safety in the world. While the experience had left emotional scars that would take time to heal, the children had the support of their families, their communities, and their heroes in leather jackets. Many of them, even years later, would remember the sound of motorcycle engines and associate it not with danger, but with salvation. Marcus became an advocate for trauma-informed community support and began giving presentations at schools and community centers about how to recognize signs of danger and take action. He worked with Captain Sarah Chen and the police department to develop educational programs about child safety. His face became recognized throughout the region, and while he remained humble about his role in the rescue, he embraced the opportunity to make a broader impact on child safety and community vigilance. The story of the Iron Brotherhood and the rescue at the gas station became a symbol of hope and human goodness. It reminded people that heroes don't always wear capes or uniforms, sometimes they wear leather jackets and ride motorcycles. It demonstrated that listening to our instincts, trusting our compassion, and taking action in the face of danger can change lives and save the innocent. The ripple effect of that one moment of bravery continued to spread outward, inspiring others to be more aware of their surroundings, to report suspicious activity, and to believe that they too could make a difference. Years later, when the Iron Brotherhood rode together on their weekend charity runs, they often passed that same gas station. They would slow down, honoring the moment that changed everything. They had set out that Saturday to bring joy to sick children in a hospital, but instead, they had saved children from a nightmare and changed the trajectory of their own lives. In the end, the real charity wasn't what they had planned to deliver, it was the gift of awareness, courage, and compassion that they had given to their community that day.